Sahana bhavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahe, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti. The supreme reality. First topic we have there is Supreme God. So I started reading, right? So the first thing he explains here is the pluralistic Nama Rupa which got superimposed upon that Brahman in no way affects Brahman. This is the first point he is trying to explain. Then comes the content. Then he explains what is this Supreme God? What is that Supreme Reality? What is that Brahman? Is what he is explaining here. And this explanation when they give, and subsequently he is going to give very many pointers. Many pointers are going to come in the subsequent pages. The first thing what you need to understand here is the fundamental problem these masters face when they had to communicate something which cannot be communicated. And remember, the problem is not from their end. From their end, there is no problem. The problem lies in the receiver's end. They don't have an issue. The problem is we cannot understand because anything subtle cannot be captured by language, words. Words cannot communicate the subtler aspects of life. This we can understand even in our worldly thing itself. The worldly aspect itself we can understand. Many times when we say, I love you, that statement, I love you, doesn't communicate the love that you have. Isn't it? I'm not talking about just, for people typing, not like Oliver Goldsmith says. Love is still an emptier sound, modern, fair one's jest and all that. That's not what I'm referring to. The person who feels any affection or even anger. Have you ever seen anyone satisfactorily explained their anger? Have you ever expressed your anger to your full satisfaction? Have you ever expressed, communicated the pain, the misery, the sorrow of yours through words? See, suddenly the whole thing changes. You see, I'm just talking about the first layer. Beyond the physical is the emotional. The first layer of subtlety. The moment you go to emotions itself, we find it difficult to use words to capture. Emotions you cannot capture. You go to ideas. Words get far more complex. Words get more difficult. So therefore, we have started using signs and symbols. Right? H2O. You just write as H2O. Now, why suddenly H2O comes into picture? Why suddenly we started using symbols in mathematics? Division. You put a line and put two dots. That's called division. You say X, Y, Z. Sin theta, cos theta, something and all we use. Symbols. All that is in symbols. It's all in equations. E is equal to mc square. Now, what is communicated through that? E is equal to mc square. A literature student can never understand that. How can E be equal to M? When you mix M and C, you get E. No, sir, it doesn't work like that. Why? Because the moment ideas are far more subtle. Right? Now we are going one step beyond that intellect also. Must have that much of sympathy on these masters who are attempting to communicate it. But any communication, they have to use the language only. Words only they have to use. There is no other way. They cannot use any other means to communicate this knowledge of what is that Brahman. And the problem here is this. When they are using a language, they cannot be using a language which is scientific in nature. It should be poetic in nature. The scientific nature language is what? One word, one meaning. Poetic language is one word, multiple meanings. That's called a poetic language. Now, to communicate this, they needed a poetic language, and in that poetic language, they had to make it precise, perfect, masterly. They had to present. That's why it is known as Sanskrit, what we call as Sanskrit, that is. It means well done, well crafted, poetic language. It is actually contradiction in terms. The language means should be precise. One word should have one meaning. You can't have 50 meanings to it. But if you go to this, to the subject here, it is taught in a language. That is why this language itself got evolved. The language itself developed to communicate this knowledge. So you need to understand the complexity there. This poetic language is what they have to use, no other option. That is why you find this Isavasya mantra, what he gives, this Purnam Adaha, Purnam Idam. That's all. 3 words he uses. That is Purnam, this is Purnam. Now, what's the meaning of that? What is the meaning of this? That is infinite. This is infinite. They could have easily said directly, Brahman is infinite. World is infinite. Brahman is Purnam. Jagat also Purnam. Jivan also Purnam. Problem solved. Even though this Jagat, which has come out of that Brahman's Purnatvam is not affected at all. It's very easy for them to say that. So it's not that, if we can say that in English, is it a difficulty for them to put it across in Sanskrit? Right. It's no difficulty, but they chose to use these words. This, that. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of that? Why they use such terms? So interesting. Why this mantra uses these two words, this and that, instead of saying Brahman and Jagat? It would have been much easier, right? No. There are certain things that are implied in the terminology. Wherever we use the word that, suggestion there is, implied there is a distance. Isn't it? It's far off. That means far off. This means a closeness comes into picture, isn't it? Isn't it? It's implied. Whenever you use the word that person, that means you are distance. This person means he is very close. He is sitting right in front of you. This is nearness. This is something which is close to us. That implies something which is far off. So whatever you understand as that which is far off is Purnam. Whatever you understand which is close to you is also Purnam. You see. Then what will happen? This Purnam, which is close to you, has come out of that Purnam, that fullness, that complete, that infinite. Even though this has come out of that, that still remains infinite. It is not any less. This is the idea. This is the message he is trying to communicate. So what are you supposed to do with this? This and that, this and that, this and that. So what do? You go on probing into what is this and what is that? What is this and what is that? Is this infinite? Is this infinite? Whatever this I understand, is this infinite? Does it fit into infinite? Does it fit into infinite? Does it fit into infinite? It looks like that over a period of time. Slowly what happens? You go on deleting. You go on bridging the gap between this and that. By bridging the gap between this and that, you go on eliminating this, only that remains. That is the process of, this is the job of religion. Religion is there in our life only for this purpose. Everything that religion asks us to do, wants us not to do, everything is revolving around this one concept. It is there to give you a special vision to recognize, to register the unmanifest that in this manifested world. Now, today we are not able to recognize that. Therefore, we have this religion. So what you do, you go on bridging the gap between this and that. That is a message he gives here. Om Purnamada, Purnamidam. Now, this Purnam is another word, beautiful word. Inspired me to, give my daughter the name. A lot of people ask, is it Annapurni? I said, no, just Purni. What is it? It's full. It's full by itself. See, it is complete in itself. That's all. Just reminds every time you call. Reminder is this mantra, Isavasya Upanishad. This is infinite. That is, don't think she is so fat. Huh? The infinite, sir. She fills the entire. In fact, that is what every child does, actually. Every child, when it arrival, they are so tiny, actually. They are so small, but they fill the house, no matter what the size of the house is. Whether it is a studio apartment or it is a mansion, doesn't make any difference. They can fill the whole house. That is a child. So every child is bringing that completeness. These are all stories. That's not essential here. See, these are all not necessary for us. What you need to understand here is, what is this Purnam? Fullness, wholeness, completeness, infinite. What is this infinite? And Vedanta says, this Isavasya Upanishad says, you are complete right now. This is infinite. That's it. You are full. You take yourself to be whatever. Even if you consider yourself to be the Jiva, it says, as Jiva, you are infinite. On what basis? On what basis it says that is infinite? Correct. On what basis the mantra says this is infinite? Purnam idam says this is also infinite. On what basis? We have seen that in the previous chapter. The superimposition acquires the properties of the real object. Isn't it? If the rope is 6 feet long, the superimposed snake also will be 6 feet long. That is why you cannot superimpose an elephant on a rope. Isn't it? You will never see a rope and say there is an elephant. You can see a boulder and superimpose an elephant. That is possible. But you cannot impose an elephant on a rope. Why? Because the properties of elephant and the properties of rope doesn't go together. And what is the property of Brahman? Infinite. If Brahman, which is real, on which we have superimposed this world, if that is infinite, then the world also has to be infinite. Purnamada, Purnamidam. This is the logic of it. It's not just a simple statement they make. Now we have to derive all this. Purnamada, Purnamidam, when he says, we should have completed this illusion idea, only then we can decode what is he meaning by Purnamada. That is okay, sir. Brahman is infinite, we all agree. But how are you to justify the world is also infinite? And then we go to this previous chapter. We have seen all this. Okay. Fortunately. What is the world made up of? World is made up of time, space, causation. Time is eternal. Space is all-pervading. Causation is infinite. It stretches, unending. There is no end to space. There is no beginning or end to time. There is no beginning or end you can give to cause and effect also. Causation, there is no beginning or end. Space, there is no beginning or end. Time, there is no beginning or end. So all that means what? Infinite. So what is world? World is also infinite, he says. But then our problem immediately will come. Sir, but I am not experiencing myself to be infinite. This also includes who? The jiva, the individual. It is not only the object, it is subject included in that. So Jagat is infinite, means the jiva who is in the Jagat is also infinite, complete, whole. When? Right now. But I am not experiencing myself to be complete. Because anything that is full has to be infinite in nature. Why? Fullness itself means what? It's full. There is no boundary possibility for it. Because limitations can happen only where there is a boundary, isn't it? He says infinite. There is a boundary. There is a boundary that we are going to give. Anything that is not having a boundary cannot have a limitation. It has to be what? Complete, whole, everything. All these words. And what is the implication of completeness? Completeness is opposite of incompleteness. Correct. Now today, do you feel complete or you feel incomplete? Wanting. Today we feel I lack something in life, isn't it? There is something in me I am missing, I am lacking. I am not complete, I am not full as it is. As I am not full, sir. After attending your Vedanta class, there is a possibility for me to become full. After doing all the prescribed spiritual disciplines, one day I am going to become infinite. Says no. Vedanta says, no. You are complete right now. But the problem is, I am not experiencing it. I am not experiencing this Purnatvam in me. The fullness is not experienced by me. So what am I to do now? Why I am not experiencing to know that? Why you are not able to experience that is because you need to shift your thought pattern completely. You have to take a U-turn. You got to go reverse. You got to travel in the opposite direction from where you have been traveling all these years. All these days. What is the languaging in which you have been traveling? You have been traveling in the language of duality. Now you got to start learning the language of non-duality. You have to move in the opposite direction. Otherwise, we are all very happy. See, to say that, sir, today you are a jiva, you are an individual. You practice, you do this self-development. You see, that will work very well for all of us. We'll say, correct, sir. I'm interested in developing myself. I wanted to work on for my spiritual growth, evolution. I wanted to work on my spiritual development. Whatever words, you see, all those things we are willing to practice. You see, why? Because the betterment that we are wanting to achieve is going to be happening in future. And this is where a deep message comes in. Follow carefully now. Whatever you consider as growth, development, which is in the future, every one of us will have a conception. Who is a better individual? Correct? What is the meaning of a better person? What is the meaning of spiritually evolved person? What is the meaning of this? Towards that, I'm going to travel. If you see that carefully, it is exactly opposite of your past. That's all. Whatever you conceive as better is nothing but opposite of your past. If my past is full of poverty, my future better life means what? Richness, isn't it? If my past were to be full of illiteracy, better future is literacy. If my past were to be full of sorrow, better future is going to be peace. Isn't it? That's why you find a lot of people getting so impressed with a person who says, I am fasting. Fasting. There's a person here who told me, sir, you must meet this master. I said, look here, there was a time once I was so keen on meeting various people, spiritual. The moment I hear someone who is, a spiritual guru, I would go. Either I'll go alone or I will take support, 2-3 people along with me, just in case something happens there. I said, that's all over, sir. Now I'm settled with my guru. I'm happy with that. I have nothing. But this guy was insisting me. And unfortunately, he was attending my class. I couldn't do anything with it. If otherwise means, I would have said, get out. Ask him to come and meet me, I would have told him. If it is outsider. This guy was attending class, so very, very sweetly, he was telling me, sir, it's a great Mahatma. I said, okay. Now, what is greatness about him? For the last 17 years, he's been having just water. Nothing else. I said, just water? Yes. Only water he has been drinking. Morning he will drink that, some process he has, I think. He'll drink that water. And evening he will drink one water. That's it. Nothing else. That's how he's been living. I turned back and told him, so what? After that, he never came back to me. So what are you trying to say? Is why are you getting impressed with that? You are getting impressed with this because you will not have any control over your tongue. See, the one who has no control over the tongue is the one who will get impressed with the person who is fasting. The one who believes whole life is only on money, 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 money. When he hears a person who is not touching money at all. No cash transactions, sir. All credit only. Not in that sense. No cash, no credit, nothing. He just lives with nothing, empty pocket. He lives as a pauper. What a life that is. Passing rich with 40 pounds a year. 40 pounds for 1 year. The fellow has to live. I don't know what you call that as. It's like living with, few hundred rupees per month you earn to live. Passing rich, he says. That's the best part of it. Oliver Goldsmith is passing rich with 40 pounds a year. Village preacher. How? Who gets impressed with that? The one who says, I am not able to meet my ends. If my income is growing by arithmetic progression, my expenses are growing by geometric progression, sir. Mathematically, one fellow explained. I said, that's my problem, Ishwar. What am I to do? I said, you are asking a wrong person, because neither my income is growing nor my expenses is growing. In fact, my expenses only grows. Income is not growing. What is this? Who gets impressed with that? Exactly opposite. Remember, whatever you conceive as development is nothing but opposite of your past. All the problems of the past deleted is what you are calling as future. Therefore, your future is nothing but what? Past ulta. That's about it. It's just past in the opposite direction. You call that as development? What is that got to do with spiritual? That's the point here. Isavasya says, nothing doing, man. You are complete, not in future. I am not going to make you complete in future. After studying Vedanta, you are going to become future. No, you are complete right now, it says. Right now it is completion. Purnamada, Purnamida. You take out this infinite from that infinite. What remains is again infinite. Indeterminate. We call it as indeterminate. This means the Jiva and Jagat. The qualities and properties of Jiva, Jagat, all put together. The world and the individual, all put together is what is referred as this. This came out of that. Even though this has come out of that, that remains the same. Now we find, sir, if I give you a check, my bank balance should reduce, no? My bank balance reduces, your bank balance increases. Correct. That is a mathematics we know of. We do not know a mathematics where any amount is taken out of that, that still remains the same. That is why he gives few examples. He immediately goes to giving some examples here. Candle. Any amount of candles were lit from the original candle. The original candle light is not reduced, isn't it? That light remains the same. You can go on lighting. That's what they do in the Deepavali. Okay, what we all do in Deepavali is people light lamp, all over house. Full house they light. What we do is we take from the next one. No. What they used to do is you have to go to the original, first one they light. They go to that and take. So every time you have to walk up and down. Now we have made it simpler. Why go up and down, Next you take. That is cheating. Not allowed, actually. You have to go to the original, take from there, put it back again. Take the next, go, light, come back again. Go to that original. That is this one. You go on and on and on. And what is this? This is close to you today. The world is close to you today. God is far away. Right? As you keep progressing, what will happen? As you keep understanding, what is going to happen, sir? The world will start becoming that. Brahman will become this. What this fellow says is, I have extracted Brahman out of this world. This is how this person feels. So the teacher says, from the rope, snake. The student says, in and through the snake, I am seeing the rope. Now, which has come closer? Brahman has come closer to him. That is where this and that merges to become one. Are they two now? No, they are not two. Are they far? No. So that's what Isavasya says. Taddure tadantike says. It is far and it is near. It is far when you start. And the world is so near to you in the beginning. As you keep moving, as you keep understanding, what happens? Brahman becomes this, world will become that. Starting point is Brahman is that, world is this. That is the interpretation. First, Purnamada, Purnamidam. Right? As you keep studying, what is this Purnamada, Purnamidam, Idam? You go on thinking on this. What will happen slowly? Slowly, this will become distanced. That will start coming closer to you. This recedes and thus comes in. Comes closer and closer and closer. A point comes where it merges. This and that becomes one and the same. That is the process here, he says. That is the process of Vedanta. You start with it. And then what is it? Now that reality, he gives the examples, I said. One example is the light example he gives. Another example he gives is the cotton and yarn. Another example. These examples are very easy. See, the examples is not a problem at all. You can just read it once, you will understand it straight away. Same way, you will not have any problem with reference to the personal practical example that he is giving also. The practical example that he is giving is the dream. The phenomenon of dream proceeds from the mind. That infinite dream has emerged from the infinite mind. Relatively speaking, okay? In the relative example, in comparison to the dream, any amount of dream can project does not render the mind any less, he says. You can go on projecting, creating this. So, what we understand from that, the point that he explained earlier is the superimposition doesn't impact the original. That is the first point he is trying to explain. After explaining that, he goes on to teaching the reality, Brahman. What is that? It's like you start explaining the rope. You're going to be explaining the rope to that boy who has no clue of the rope. But remember, all these examples collapse from this point. At this point, all these examples lose. Why? Because the language that is used to communicate is always understood by us with reference to the opposite. Isn't it? When we say tall, we immediately understand it as what? Not short. Is rich means is not poor. So all our understanding of any words being used in any language for that matter, right? We always conceive that not as it is, we understand that with reference to the opposite. You see, without the opposite, to compare and contrast, no word we understand. And the problem for these people is there is no second entity to compare and contrast Brahman. There's no second entity. There is only Brahman. As far as he is concerned, there is only rope. Right? There is no comparison possibility for him. But he has to. So that's why we say we need to understand the difficulty that the scriptures suffer from. They have a real problem. And when we say real problem they face, it is not their problem. It is actually our inability to understand their words. He is only saying he is rich. That's about it. But he is not saying he is not poor. But immediately we understand not poor. Because we have the problem. So first thing, this second problem we will face is our language problem. First one. First problem is the language problem. The second problem we are going to face, because we have to move into the pointers. Right? I'm just giving you the introduction before you go into the study of the pointers. Right? Indicative definitions he calls it as. Indicative definitions of Brahman. There's no directly, you can't define it. Can indicate why they have to speak in that language. Pointers, why they have to speak the language is because of this. Like, remember, we have seen earlier, Chandrashakhanyaya. That moon branch analogy. That moon branch analogy, what do we understand? The broad daylight, the cloudless day, you have recognized, you have registered the crescent moon. And you have to point that to your friend to see. Now you tell him, can you see that? He is not able to locate. Where? In sky. When he is not able to locate, what we do is we tell him, you see that yonder there is a tree? Yes. The tree that is in the corner, there is a branch protruding? Yes. In the branch, you see there is a twig? Yes. You see a leaf moving? Yes. Just see between the leaves. And when he sees between the leaves, he says, yes, I got the moon. Right. We have studied this earlier. In the introduction itself, we have studied this. Introduction to Vedanta. In that, what is interesting in that Nyaya is the tree, the trunk, the branch, the twigs, the leaves, none of them has got anything to do with the moon. There is no connection. There is no cause and effect relationship between the tree and the moon. Is there any connection? There is no connection. And yet, unconnected to the moon, that tree, the trunk, the branch, the leaves, all that assisted in locating the moon. Something which is unconnected to that assisted you to locate something. Similarly, these pointers were all unconnected to Brahman. But then you have to follow that. You have to go through that to capture Brahman. But if you hold on to this, you cannot capture. It's exactly like you holding on to the trunk. If you go on looking at the trunk, how can you see moon? You will miss the moon. Right? You can't see that. Without it also, you cannot see it. If you hold on to it, you cannot see it. You get involved in that, you cannot see it. At the same time, if you discard it also, you cannot see it. On your own, can you locate it? Also not possible. If you can locate it on your own, there is no need of any one of these things. So when you are reading this one, you will see each one he is going to give. Ekam, Advayam, Akriyam, Nirgunam. He will go on using that. Very many words he is going to use. And he's using very many words to explain. Follow those words. But in and through the words, what you need to understand is those words are not Brahman. Very simple. Instead of complicating all this, the word fire is not fire, isn't it? Otherwise, because I use the word fire, by now my tongue should have been burnt. None of us should be able to utter this word fire. Word Brahman is not Brahman. Right? Sir, but without Brahman, isn't it Brahman? No. Brahman is a word. Remember that. Right? Don't get involved in that word. Atman is a word. Don't get involved in that word. It is Advayam. One of the beautiful definitions. We'll see that. That word is not. Because the word always describes something which is conditioned. That which has certain properties, certain guna. A word can explain a guna. Word can explain a kriya. That is possible. Word has a role to play. Word explains a guna. Word explains a kriya. Word can explain a sambandha, a relationship. What is the connection between this and that? Through relationship, a word can give a particular relationship. That is possible. Which category it belongs to? That is also possible. Which category, sir? So all these things belong to the category of a. Someone told me this banana is not a tree. Said it doesn't fall in the category of a tree. Said why? Because there's no bark, something and all he was telling me. Says it doesn't belong to that category, sir. Tree. Trees, there is a category. Category of trees. In that category, will that fall in? Tomato, is it a fruit or a vegetable? Right. Tomato, it's not a fruit, sir. But it ripes. Right. Mango ripes like that, tomato also, but it's not a fruit. It is a particular, any description. Remember, a word's description, descriptive terms can be used only where there is a particular guna to be described, a particular action to be described, a particular relationship to be described, a particular category. Tomato is a vegetable. No, tomato is a fruit, but it will be sold as vegetable. Confusion only. We are not able to decipher whether tomato is a fruit or vegetable. Language can describe only with reference to all these things. A language can describe something which is rudi, they say. Means popularity. How well known it is, how it is not known. How precious that is, how it is not precious. Based on that, it can be described. Words can be descriptive terminologies can be only with reference to these things. When it comes to Brahman, it doesn't fall into any one of this category. Then, how will you describe Brahman? Right. Therefore, what they have to do, they have to immediately take your attention away from the sky, away from the moon, and ask you to locate the tree. Now, your argument cannot be, sir, tree has got nothing to do. Tree is not in the sky. Moon is in the sky. Why are you asking me to look here? Say, no. You have to start from here only. So all these terminologies will come in to picture. So first problem, our understanding of those words. Second problem, there is a limitation to the word itself. Then there is a third problem we will encounter, that is the subject matter is subtle. Since it is subtle, a subtle cannot be explained through words. Isn't it? As I am speaking, I assume that you are able to understand what I am speaking. Correct? You can understand what I am saying. That doesn't mean you are agreeing to what I am saying, isn't it? You can understand what I am speaking. That doesn't mean you need to agree, no? There is a difference, right? Between understanding something, agreeing something. But immediately we will say what? Sir, if your person has understood, that means what? Agreed, no? No, they are not the same thing. They are two different things. Understanding is one thing. Agreeing is another thing. In Vedanta, what is required? Understanding or agreement? When it comes to science, No teacher will ask you, do you agree with me or not? Pythagoras theorem. This is Pythagoras theorem. Explain. The teacher will not ask you, do you agree? Understanding stops there. Correct. But when it comes to this, you have to agree, isn't it? The boy has to agree that it is not a snake, it is a rope. If he is not agree, if the boy says, yes, I understand, what you say is rope. But then how I can save myself if the rope bites me? That's what all of us say, no? Isn't it? Sir, I'm able to understand Vedanta, but how to live it practically? See, practically living is a problem, sir. The problem is not with reference to understanding Vedanta. Understanding Vedanta very easy. Now, Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate. That's all. Is there any difficulty? That is infinite, this is infinite. Infinite minus infinite, infinite. Is there any difficulty? We have little mathematics, basic schooling in mathematics. If you have done, you would have been able to understand all these things. There is no necessity for you to have any problem to read this Vedanta Treatise book. If you have elementary English, sufficient. You don't need advanced English. Literary scholarship is not required to read the book and understand what the book says. Because when I started reading this book, Vedanta Treatise, I had no knowledge of the language, English language. So this I can speak out of full authority. From wisdom I can speak. Right. You can just read. You just need some basic language. You have very, very basic language is enough for you to understand all this. But then it doesn't get translated into life, isn't it? It doesn't become life. What to do? Why is the case? Where is the problem? Immediately we say, practice, sir. There's nothing to practice here. In Vedanta, there is no such thing called practice existing. In Vedanta, there is only one thing. What is it, sir? Understood means you live it. If you are not living it means you have not understood. Therefore, what you need to do? Don't try to live. If you try to live, you will become a very good imitator. You can imitate very well. That's all. You can also sit in Padmasana and take a picture. And anyone who sees the picture will think you are in the deep meditation. That's all. That's not a big problem. You can imitate. And you can sit and meditate also for hours together. That is also not a problem. But still, have you come out of that incompleteness? You still feel a sense of incompleteness in you, wanting in you. How do you get over that, sir? Go back to your understanding. How do you get that understanding? Understanding comes only through repetition. Repeating, going over the same thing again and again and again. There it is repeating. when you repeat it again and again and again, which is what is known as manana, you get this understanding turns into a conviction. So first, when you do Shravanam, you get an understanding. But understanding alone is not enough for you to live it, because you have understood attachment spells sorrow. You have understood that. There is no problem in the understanding. But then you are not able to get over that attachment. Why? Because that understanding has not become a conviction. If it becomes conviction, then you automatically get over that attachment. That conviction has not come. Why the conviction has not come is because of lack of going over the same again and again and again. That is why he is giving very many pointers. So many pointers he is giving. Same thing, viewed from this way, that way, this way, that way. So many things when you see simultaneously and go through that things again and again, and don't think this is brainwashing, please. This is not hallucination. And you say, going over the same thing, repeating the same thing again and again, are you doing the self-hallucinating, sir? This is not self-hallucination. Why? Because there is a proper logic, reason, and analysis. You go through this reason and analysis. That is why it is called as Chandrashakhanyaya, logic. You see, there is a reasoning. There is a backup of tarka, logic. That's why this subject is known as Mimamsa. It is worthy of reasoning, worthyful analyzing. A subject which is properly investigated. That's why it is called as Mimamsa, which takes the support of logic and reason. So your analysis is not just going on repeating that, again and again. Tattvamasi, 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 and all that, please. It doesn't work that way. You go through this issue here. So the problem here is the language itself. Now we also have communication problem. It's not that only the masters have communication problem, we also have communication problem. But our communication problems is not the same as their communication problem. Our communication problem is because of us. Their communication problem is also because of us. In our communication, what is the problem? Every communication of yours, there is a intention. There is something you are trying to communicate more than the words. Mark the distinction careful. When you read the scriptures, there is a difference. Those masters also speaking to us. And they also say there is a communication gap. We also speak to people. We also say there is a communication gap. You go to any management program, they say there is a communication problem, sir. Every organization has a communication issue. One of the biggest problems of the corporate world is communication. What do you mean by that? What is meant is, when we experience a communication problem, what we mean is, through that communication, I have an intention, I have an agenda, that agenda is not getting fulfilled. Remember that. Our communications there is an intention. I am speaking to you all. Just giving an example. Okay. What is the intention? If I have an intention, and always that agenda will be what? Some personal agenda. Name, fame, money, power, status, position, respect, etc. If my agenda were to be respect, right, through this communication, through these classes, what I try to achieve is what? The respect. That respect, if it is not happening, I will call that communication as a communication breakdown. Not what I'm speaking to you people. See, all of you will be able to understand what I'm speaking, what I'm teaching, what I'm talking, and all that you can understand. But this understanding of yours has not resulted in respecting me. Okay. Just example. Okay. I'm just giving an example. If the respecting is not happening, what is according to me? According to me, that is communication gap. That is where I call as communication breakdown. That is a communication problem, sir. Every one of us ask, look, now you go back and see all your communication classes. What they will say is, use such words to do. Like people teach, no, how you should go and walk into an interview. Have a firm handshake. Sit straight. Have a firm handshake. Now, your handshake is firm, but what are you trying to communicate through that? When you come to the Shastras, they don't have anything of that. They just speak. That's it. Nothing else. 2 + 2, 4. What is intended through that, sir? Zero intention. They don't have any agenda. But still there is a communication breakdown for them also. There is a gap. There is a communication problem they also experience. Their experiencing communication problem is because of the very language problem, the way in which we understand the language, also the topic, what they are trying to communicate. So the problem is not theirs. The problem is with reference to these points. So this is where the whole thing is. See, so before you go into the pointers study, beware of this. With this, when you read, you can see a tremendous compassion in the Shastras to us. That's why we call them Mother Shruti. See, that compassion, the compassion with which they are speaking to us, without any agenda, them only to give the plain facts. They just provide the facts. The truth is spoken plain. There is no agenda at all. Our problem is this. Without any personal agenda, we cannot speak. That is sattvic speech, he says. That sattvic speech is the speech spoken without any agenda. See, the words itself are so potent, so strong. The words itself is so interesting. That is why these masters can go on repeating the same thing again and again and again and again and again. Same thing. They never get tired. I heard Swamiji's lecture, which was recorded in 1978. Recording. 1978. That's the oldest which I have seen. Same petrol example. God is giving verbatim, the same example, same words, same sequence, not a change. I said, this man has to be a master. Why, sir? I get tired. Every class we have to speak different things. Isn't it? That's why you say class is interesting, isn't it? Different things. That's why people take different texts. So what they do is they go to different texts. This text is over. Okay, now take the next text. Over. Next text. Over. Next text. By the time, and we have ocean. Text-wise, if you take, it is ocean. There's one man, Appaya Dikshidhar himself, has written over 104 textbooks. Right? And some of those texts need at least a couple of years for you to understand what he is saying in that. So terse. One man's work. Then you have Appaya Dikshidhar, I don't know how many of you know or heard of him. That's why I'm giving his name. Vachaspati Mishra, Appaya Dikshidhar. You wouldn't have heard. Vidyaranya, maybe there's a good chance. From Karnataka, you would have heard. See, Shankara, Madhva, Ramanuja, Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, Buddha, all those people are all known to you. Saying, these people are not as popular as this. They have written so much. Can move from one text to another text to another text to another text to another text. Now, we get tired with repetition. The scriptures don't get tired with repetition. That's called reflection. If you are getting tired with repeating, means you are lacking the depth. If you have the depth in you, you can go on and on and on and on. I could not go, but I have seen. A man can go on and on and on and on and on. Last about 35 years, to my knowledge. 32 years, to my knowledge. It's been going on and on and on. Personally, I've got same thing. From where that comes, comes because he's just stating a fact. Any number of times you ask what is 2 plus 2, it will be what? It cannot be one class it is 4, another class it is 3.5, another class it is 7.5, another class it is 22.22. If I go on giving different answers, that is not conviction. His masters have that conviction. He goes on repeating the same thing again and again and again and not get tired. The moment something is repeated, we get tired. Already 2 signed out from class. Right. And deliberately stretching the class. Signed out. They say, we'll see. Anyway, that's all. He's going to say the same thing now. That going over again and again in the same reasoning pattern. In that same pattern of reasoning, you have to go through again and again and again till you can make something of your own. Till that time, what you need to do, sir? Repeat. So that constant reflection. is needed on these pointers, right? You can take any one of those pointers to contemplate, you can reflect. But you have to go through that again and again and again in the same manner in which it has been explained to you, right? So I'm only explaining the problem we will encounter when we study this, right? And why the problem and what the solution to the problem. This is all we have seen today. Okay. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.